The American West has spawned many stories of lost treasure. Take for example, the Great White Sands Mystery. In a large cave near Humbrol Canyon, in the San Andres Mountains, on the White Sands Missile Test Range, in New Mexico, there is supposedly a treasure worth $500 million. Rumors of this treasure first surfaced in 1937 when an individual called Doc Noss claimed that he had found a cache of gold bars, stacked like cordwood, in an enormous cave. Noss' description of sacks full of gold coins, Wells Fargo boxes and armor-clad skeletons gives the impression of an ancient Spanish treasure, added to over the years by marauding Apaches. Noss' story was given credibility by his being in possession of several gold bars. Unfortunately, Noss could never exactly pinpoint the cave again. The legend has haunted the Southwest for decades. In the late 1970s, world-famous trial attorney F. Lee Bailey was able to secure for his clients, Expeditions Unlimited, permission to enter the missile test range with diggers and backhoes. The treasure hunters were allowed to bring every resource to bear, but only for a limited time. The only thing the searchers were able to find was a cave full of graffiti and tin cans. Controversy continues to swirl around this treasure. Some claim it is a hoax and that Doc Noss was a confidence trickster. Others claim that army officers or government officials have secretly removed the treasure. Montezuma's treasure. In 1519, Hernán Cortés landed in Mexico with fewer than 500 men and began one of the most outstanding adventures of all time, the conquest of the ferocious and staggeringly wealthy Aztec Empire. The Aztecs were a warlike people who subdued most of central Mexico, demanding tribute from the vanquished in the form of gold and human sacrifices for their gods. Hunted by the greedy conquerors, a small band of Aztec priests are said to have convoyed an enormous treasure of holy golden relics northward to the wild and remote land beyond the grasp of the Spanish. One legend tells of an Aztec treasure hidden in a maze of honeycombed passages on White Mountain near Kanab, Utah. In 1914, a seedy saddlebum named Freddie Crystal claimed he found a goat pictograph carved on a rock in the vicinity of Johnson Canyon, 30 miles from Kanab. This symbol was unique to the Aztecs. Crystal went to Mexico in 1916, returning 4 years later filled with tales of the lost treasure of Montezuma. In 1922, Crystal, followed by a band of the curious, set out to run down the treasure clues he had been collecting for years. The trail led him to a rocky arroyo on the side of White Mountain. There Crystal discovered a cave. The entrance of the cave was blocked with sand. The party dug away the sand and discovered a blue limestone wall, cemented together with marsh clay. There had been no marshes in the area for centuries. The dig brought out most of the people of Kanab, who dug a tunnel some 160 feet deep. The diggers found several rooms, with many tunnels branching off, but no treasure. Digging continued for 2 years until work shifted to the wash at the foot of the mountain. Here, just below the surface, the diggers ran into a bed of hard material. Exhausted by false leads and frustrations in the hostile terrain, interest in the dig evaporated. Another story of the lost Aztec treasure records that, in 1865, prospector Jim White braved the Colorado River on a raft. Supposedly he found a cave near the ruins of an old Indian settlement on the south bank of the river in the lower granite gorge of the Grand Canyon, 3 miles east of Pierce Ferry. White then set out for home. Reaching civilization, delirious from weeks of hunger and hardship, White told of a cave filled with thousands of golden idols and other ancient Aztec objects. The Imperial Mexican Treasury. In 1863, after a plebiscite, the throne of Mexico was offered to Archduke Ferdinand Maximilian, brother of the Austrian emperor. The empire was short-lived, collapsing in 1867 after the execution of the emperor. There is a legend that ex-Confederate soldiers, who had fled to Mexico after the American Civil War, agreed to help Maximilian evacuate part of the imperial treasury from Mexico before the final collapse of the empire. Supposedly, 45 barrels filled with treasure traveled north disguised as a shipment of flour. Once across the border at El Paso, Texas, a dispute broke out among the ex-Confederates. Some wished to fulfill the mission while others wanted to take the treasure and run. A gunfight broke out and all but 6 men were killed. These 6 loaded the treasure into saddlebags, and buried what they could not carry in Castle Gap, in the King Mountains. The 6 were subsequently attacked by outlaws and all but one were killed. The lone survivor, badly wounded, related his story to a doctor attending his wounds. With his last draining energy, he drew a crude map which he handed to the doctor. The Lost Dutchman's Mine. This is one of the most sought-after treasures in history. Legend tells of a fabulous mine in Arizona's Superstition Mountains. So alluring is the prospect of unlimited wealth that many people have died searching for the lost mine. The entire story began in 1748 when the Peralta family began mining silver and gold. According to family records, this wealthy family operated 18 silver and gold mines in the Superstition Mountains. With the outbreak of the Mexican War in 1848, law and order disintegrated in the area and the Apache Indians grew increasingly hostile, attacking the miners almost continuously. Disaster finally overtook the Peraltas in September 1848 with a general massacre by the Apaches. Following this massacre, the Apaches controlled the Superstition Mountains until 1865. Jacob Waltz, the Dutchman, enters the picture in 1871 with his partner Jacob Weiser. The 2 immigrants purchased a map drawn by the original Peralta family and located the mine within an imaginary circle whose diameter is not more than 5 miles and whose center is marked by the weaver's needle. Weiser soon vanished, all the victim of either the Apaches, desperados, or Waltz. The Dutchman continued working the mine, carrying the secret of its location to the grave with him in 1891. Supposedly, after the massacre of 1848, the Indians filled the mine shafts and disguised the remains. That there are 18 mines once owned by the Peralta family in the Superstition Mountains is historical fact. Their richness is legendary. Their location is still a mystery.